Good
I'll
morning.
get the morning. So it's April 21. It is almost 80 degrees already, about
Woo!
noon here at the Vetter Farm. I'm out in the back of the field disking.
And what you're just getting to get ready for planting?
Yep, we're getting ready for planting pastures. We've got two of them in already, and we've got three more to go. One of them, Adam, is either out in the field right now or he's prepping.
These 5 are all fields that are transitioning from row crops to pasture?
One of them has been in pasture for a couple years. It's an annual pasture. That's gets us faster grazing and everything like that. And then I think one of them was pasture last year, but we had to terminate it because we had some issues. It just didn't establish very well. It was kind of a rough spring, got it in too late. The weeds took over. So it was actually pasture last year, but we're putting it back in the perennial pasture this year.
And
So
then when you plant them as annual pastures, do you change the planting mix?
the annual mix is definitely different. The annuals typically grow a lot faster, they establish a lot quicker, and they provide much faster and usually more biomass when it comes to actual grazing value. But again, you'd have to redo it every single year. So your perennial pastures, when we put those in, those have a much deeper root structure, and when they establish, they're going to stay established for a long, long time. And so we leave them in for 4 years, but that just allows us to plant once. And because of the different root structures in the different kinds of plants, they actually they're able to reach further down and grab nutrients from way down deep and bring them up to the top. And then they get grazed, and since those nutrients get deposited higher up in the soil profile, and sometimes
And
even up on the top.
and that's better for the crop years?
That's better for the crop years, correct? That sets us up that this time of perennials that we have in our rotation, these 4 years, really set us up for being able to farm those 5 years of crops without adding any fertilizers or inputs. And so this is very key to the system working for us. Yep.
And so when you're
Yep.
deciding or whoever's deciding what is gonna happen with these pastures, if they're gonna be annuals or perennials and what plants are gonna go in the mix, it's a trade-off of, like, labor time and the need for early growth to feed
Yep.
the cows and the effect on the soil for long term?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a very multifaceted decision making process. And it took Dave a long time, years to kind of figure out the system in his head, and then years more to figure out how to implement it and get it on the ground. Now, I think the reason they kept putting that one back into annuals is because they saw that quick, huge amount of biomass that grew up so fast with that, which gives us some early season grazing where the perennials, a lot of those are more of a warm season mix. And so they can take a little bit longer to get going in the spring.
And is it important then to have things in the perennial mix that are still doing well late into the heat of summer?
Yeah, yeah, and they typically do. As long as a lot of that comes down to the grazing management. So as long as we don't overgraze, the annuals and the perennials, they both come back very well as long as you don't overgraze them. But if you overgraze, then you start hurting yourself in those subsequent trips around with the cattle because basically they say if you can graze the top half, it's all you want. So if you have a 24-inch plant, you want to graze the top 12 inches, give or take. That's your goal. Because if you start grazing 2/3 of it, then your roots start really dying back and they start putting a lot more energy into the roots because you damage the plant too much. When you hit it right at about that half, the roots actually, it stimulates the plant in a different way and it actually works faster. It's not going into this protective mode, it's going into this regrowth mode. So it exudes a lot more exudates and sugars into the soil. So it's healthier for the soil. And the regrowth happens a lot faster. The other part of it is too with the annuals is they grow so fast if they get away from us and they go into reproductive and start putting on seed, then they're done for the year because you graze that off. They've already done their job because the plant's job is just to reproduce itself. So it's trying to get to seed point. So if you can graze them right before they put the seed on, then you keep that in that vegetative state and they just keep regrowing. There's a lot that goes into it. And that maybe sounds like I know something, but I'm not a grazer by nature. So this is all just stuff I've picked up and learned, but there's a lot of people who are way sharper at it than I am. But those are the basic concepts behind it. Yeah.
I can already tell you I'm gonna have to use spell check on the transcript for this one because you used a lot of words that are not in my regular vocabulary. All
Yeah,
I know is I
so
have to keep harvesting my cilantro plant in my city girl garden so that it
yep,
doesn't bolt.
and that's exactly right. That's exactly the same thing.
Will you show us where you are and give us the
Uh,
sort of like big picture weather report? What's happening on the farm? We're well past hoodie weather now.
yeah, we are today we are well past hoodie weather. So I'm on the back of the farm. I'll pan slowly to keep this nice. Right about there, you could see the
Yeah, I can
grain
see the plant.
place. Maybe
Uh-huh.
we can even zoom in. Oh yeah, look at that. We can zoom. So there's the plant. So this would be the southeast part. Yeah. Yep. If I keep going around, you'll see the pasture that we have. This is the permanent pasture that's behind us there. 80 degrees. It's supposed to hit 90 today, probably 15 or 20 degrees above normal. I was talking with the other farmer here, Adam, and I said, this time of year, you want to make sure the animals are alive and healthy, but beyond
Mhm.
that, all you're doing is planting and just focused on
Right.
planting. So that's what we're doing right now is hitting it hard with the getting fields prepped and planted as fast as we can. And once we get these pastures in, we'll start prepping for the row crops, the corn and the soybeans. The barley's already in. That was in a long time ago, and that's growing good. In fact, you can see the first green field that you see past
Mhm.
us, that's barley. And then up the hill is a pasture that the pigs will be on later on.
Behind you are those pine trees. That's the
Say that
row
ag-
trees that lost a lot of trees to changing weather patterns and insect pressure?
Yeah, really all the way around the farm. And back in the day when they put these in, and so many other windbreaks that were being put in at the time, they really recommended like one or two different kinds of trees. And anytime you put one species of something, when that disease comes around that targets that, you can see a dead one right there. When the disease that comes around that targets that tree, then you lose all of them.
Yeah.
And so a lot more tree places and NRDs and stuff like that are now recommending when you put in a windbreak, you mix your trees and you put in 4 or 5 species of trees. That way you don't lose them all when some disease comes in or the weather patterns change or whatever it is that comes in. Because yeah, that is pretty sad to see that, and it's so many years of growth,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of work to tear them all out. So
Yeah. Some of my earliest memories on the farm are planting some of those trees when I was real little in the late '70s and early '80s.
okay, that's very cool to
They were
remember.
just
Yeah, that
just
did that.
little pine seedlings.
Yep.
I wasn't much help, but I remember
Yeah.
it happening.
Yeah, I remember doing that too as a kid, doing that and then watering them for years,
Uh-huh.
the first 5 years or so, and with a tank behind a tractor, and
Yeah.
yeah, did that about
Well, I
once a
was
week, and
fortunate to be the city kid family, so I didn't get stuck with much of the work besides the big planting day.
the initial part.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. There's bugs flying around me I can hear, and I see there's a few butterflies even already. It's a good time of year to be outside.
Thanks for checking in and thanks for
Yeah.
the work.
Thank you so much.